Have you ever felt like your dreams have died? That everything you hoped for has simply vanished? Today we're going to talk about something that could change everything. To dream is to believe. The power of hope in God. And I promise that by the end of this video, you will discover a biblical truth that will rekindle the flame within your heart. There comes a time in life when silence weighs heavily. It's not the tranquil silence of peace. It's that emptiness that screams inside, questioning everything. You look around and it seems like the whole world is moving, except you. People achieve, conquer, advance. And you're there, standing still, with the feeling that dreaming of God has become something distant, almost naive. You know when you've prayed so much that the words start to sound mechanical, when faith in difficult times feels more like a burden than an anchor. That's when many give up. The weary heart begins to negotiate with reality. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe this dream isn't for me. But something happens in the void, something that logic cannot explain. It's as if, at the bottom of the well, a tiny light begins to pulse, weak, almost imperceptible, but alive. Faith in God hasn't died. It's just waiting for a reason to breathe again. And that's where the real journey begins, because before God moves mountains, He needs to move something within you. Before the miracles happen outside, a miracle happens inside, and that miracle has a name. But are you ready to discover what happens when the soul finally decides to ask for light? There's a sacred moment that happens in the dark. It's when you stop shouting and start whispering, "God, I need you." It's not a pretty rehearsed prayer, it's a raw, true cry, and that's exactly when hope in God begins to awaken. Let me tell you a story that changed the world. Do you know Joseph? That young man who had such big dreams that even his brothers were envious? He never imagined that those dreams would come at such a high price. He was betrayed, sold into slavery, thrown into prison for a crime he never committed. Imagine, years in the dark, years forgotten, years where it seemed as if God had disappeared. But do you know what Joseph did deep in that dungeon? He didn't stop believing in his dreams, even when everything screamed, "Give up." Something inside him kept burning. His spiritual strength didn't come from what he saw. It came from what he chose to believe. Joseph understood something profound. God doesn't abandon those who wait on Him, even when the waiting hurts. And look at the end of this story. The boy forgotten in prison became governor of Egypt. The dream that seemed dead was resurrected in such a grand way that it saved entire nations from famine. God's promises never fail. They simply mature in due time. Now tell me, what if your silence, your waiting, your solitude are all preparation for something much greater than you imagine? What if God is shaping you on your spiritual path right now, while you think nothing is happening? Because there's something few people realize. When the soul asks for light, heaven has already begun to answer. You can feel it when it returns, you know? Faith, it's like the first breath after being submerged for a long time. Suddenly, a word pierces your heart. A verse you've read 1,000 times now shines differently. A song plays, and you cry, but it's not sadness. It's hope being reborn. Faith and hope don't return with trumpets and spotlights. They return in the little things, an unexpected smile, a door that opens where before there was only a wall, a peace you can't explain. It's as if God were whispering, "I am here. I have always been." Living by faith isn't about being certain of everything. It's about trusting when nothing makes sense. It's waking up and saying, "Today I choose to believe," even if the numbers don't add up, even if the diagnosis is difficult, even if the dream seems impossible, because Christian motivation doesn't come from circumstances. It comes from the presence of God. And that's when something powerful begins. You realize you're no longer alone on this journey. Every step, no matter how small, has meaning. You start to see signs where before you only saw coincidences. You begin to feel that there's a greater purpose guiding your story. It is in moments like these that the soul understands. Breathing faith is different from merely surviving. It is allowing God to guide you, even when you cannot see the complete path. And when faith begins to breathe, doors that have been locked for years begin to creak open. Look, before we continue, let me ask you something. If this content is touching your heart, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This helps more people find this message of hope. Deal? Now let's get to what really matters. The power of faith isn't just a pretty comic book phrase. It's a real living force that moves mountains in your mind before it moves mountains in your reality. When you truly believe, something changes in the air around you. It's as if the universe conspires in favor of those who trust in God. You know that situation that seemed hopeless, that impossible conversation, that problem that kept you awake at night. Suddenly, a solution appears out of nowhere. A person shows up, a path opens up, and you think, how did I not see this before? Because God opens doors that human eyes cannot see on their own. The Bible says in Matthew 17:20, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Do you understand what that means? It's not about the size of your faith. It's about the greatness of the God you believe in. The faith that moves mountains doesn't shout. It trusts. It doesn't force. It waits. It doesn't despair. It rests in the certainty that God is in control. And when you reach that level of surrender, the impossible begins to bow before the divine presence in your life. Because there's a truth no one tells you. Faith doesn't remove all obstacles. It gives you eyes to see the path through them. And it is precisely on this path that your dreams begin to take shape, color, and name. There's a magical moment in the journey of faith. It's when that vague desire, that diffuse feeling in your chest, finally takes shape. You look and think, so this is what I've always wanted. Dreams and purpose cease to be a fog and become a clear vision. Perhaps it's a calling you've always ignored, a talent hidden by fear, a calling you thought was too big for you. But now, strengthened by hope in God, you begin to believe in your dreams again, not with arrogance, but with the humility of someone who knows that everything comes from Him. God's promises are not abstract. They are specific, personal, intimate. He doesn't promise something good. He promises exactly what your heart needs at the time your soul needs to mature. It's as if He were saying, I planted this desire in you. Now trust that I will water it until it blossoms. And then you start acting differently. You're no longer that person paralyzed by fear. You take the first step. You send out that resume. You take that course. You have that difficult conversation. Because when dreams are given a name, they also gain legs, and you begin to walk towards them with faith. But there's something that needs to be clear. Not every dream comes true the way you imagined. Some are bigger, others are transformed. Some take longer than you'd like, because God isn't just interested in fulfilling your dreams. He wants to transform you in the process. There are things that only God can explain. That chance encounter that changed everything. That delay that saved you from an accident. That opportunity that arose just when you were about to give up. Coincidence? No. It's the invisible touch of someone who transforms lives behind the scenes. The spiritual path is not a straight and predictable road. It's full of curves, detours, and steep climbs. But each turn has a purpose. Each detour takes you away from something that would destroy you. Each climb prepares you for the view from the top. God transforms lives not just by changing circumstances. He transforms the way you see those circumstances. Remember Joseph in Egypt? He could have become bitter, resentful, full of hatred for the brothers who betrayed him. But no, he allowed God to transform him. And when he finally reunited with those who had hurt him, he said something revolutionary in Genesis 50:20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. This is a renewal of hope at the deepest level. It's looking back and realizing that even the broken parts of your story were part of God's plan. Betrayals taught you compassion. Losses taught you detachment. Waiting taught you patience. Nothing was in vain. And when you understand this, an inexplicable peace invades your heart. You stop fighting the process and start dancing with it. Because now you know God is weaving a masterpiece with the threads of your life. But this masterpiece often reveals itself in the details that no one else is looking at. Do you know what the problem is? We keep waiting for the spectacle, the resounding miracle, the radical change overnight. And while we wait for the earthquake, we miss the whisper, because miracles and faith often manifest themselves in the invisible. That thought that made you make a different decision, that intuition that saved you from a huge mistake, that no that hurt at the time, but that you are grateful for today. God in control doesn't need to make noise to be real. He acts with surgical precision at the exact moments. It's like a conductor leading a symphony. You only see the musicians playing, but you don't perceive his subtle gestures that coordinate everything. A pause here, an entrance there, a crescendo at that precise moment. And in the end, when the music finishes, you understand. Each note had its place. Each silence had meaning. Spiritual growth happens precisely when you learn to see these details. When you stop demanding miracles from God that you want and start thanking Him for the ones He has already done, those that you barely noticed, the parking space, the traffic light that turned red, the message that arrived at the right time. Psalm 139:16 says, "All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." This means that not a single detail of your life escapes God's gaze, not one. He is present even in what seems insignificant. And it is in these silent details that He prepares you for what comes next, the time of waiting. Now we arrive at the most difficult point of the journey, that moment that separates those who dream from those who achieve, that period that tests whether your faith is a bonfire of straw or an ember that never goes out, the time of waiting on God. Waiting is not passive. It's not about standing still and complaining that nothing is happening. Waiting on God is keeping your faith alive while the clock seems frozen. It's continuing to pray when it seems your prayers hit the ceiling and bounce back. It's persisting when everyone around you says, "Give up, it won't work." This is the moment when many abandon ship, because Christian hope demands something the world doesn't understand: supernatural patience. Not the resigned patience of someone who has given up. It's the active patience of someone who trusts that something is being prepared behind the scenes. Think of Abraham. God promised him he would be the father of multitudes, but it took 25 years for Isaac to be born. 25 years. Imagine waiting a quarter of a century for a promise. How many times must he have doubted? How many nights must he have cried? But he didn't give up. And when the promise was fulfilled, it didn't just come as a son. It came as the beginning of an entire nation. Overcoming challenges with faith isn't about being strong all the time. It's about falling, getting up, doubting, believing again, crying, smiling, questioning, and continuing. It's human, and God understands that. He doesn't expect perfection. He expects persistence, because here's the secret that few discover. Waiting isn't there to punish you, it's there to prepare you. And when you're finally ready, the sky responds in a way that will take your breath away. There's a moment you never forget. It's when the door opens, when the phone rings, when the answer arrives, when you look around and think, "My God, it really happened." Dreams fulfilled by God have a unique characteristic. They always turn out better than you imagined. It's not just the material achievement, it's what comes with it: peace, certainty, deep gratitude. You look back and see the whole journey with different eyes. That delay, it was preparation. That detour, it was protection. That no, it was because God had a much better yes in store. God opens doors with astonishing precision, not too early when you are not yet ready, not too late when you would have already given up, at the exact time, in divine kairos. And when He opens, no one can close. Revelation 3:8 says, "See, I have set before you an open door that no one can shut." Now you understand God's purpose. It wasn't just about fulfilling a dream. It was about transforming you into the person capable of sustaining it. It was about teaching you that without Him, you are nothing, but with Him, everything is possible. It was about making you a living witness that faith and hope have never, ever been in vain. And when you finally achieve what you've been asking for, something curious happens. You realize that the journey was as valuable as the destination. Because along the way, you found what truly mattered. You found God, and you discovered who you truly are in Him. Do you know what's most beautiful? The miracle doesn't end when the dream comes true. In fact, that's where the real miracle begins, the transformation of the soul. Because now you are no longer the person who started this journey. You live by faith in a completely new way. Renewing hope isn't about going back to who you were before. It's about becoming someone completely different. Someone who looks at the storms and already knows, this too shall pass. God has already delivered me from worse. Someone who faces the impossible and smiles, with God, I've already seen the impossible happen. Dreaming about God is no longer a youthful illusion. It's a mature conviction. It's the certainty that as long as there's breath in your lungs, He hasn't finished writing your story, and the next chapter could be the most incredible of all. You realize that the dream fulfilled wasn't the end. It was just the beginning, because now you carry something precious, a testimony, living proof that God is faithful. And this testimony will inspire others who are silent, waiting, and doubting. Your victory will strengthen someone's faith. And here is the truth I promised at the beginning of this video. To dream is to believe, and to believe is to choose to keep dreaming of God every day. It doesn't matter how many times you've fallen. It doesn't matter how long you've waited. It doesn't matter how impossible it seems, because in Philippians 1:6 it is written, He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. He doesn't give up on you, so don't give up on your dreams. Now tell me, what is the dream that God has placed in your heart? The one you almost gave up on, but that still beats deep inside. Write it in the comments. Let's pray for it together. Let's declare that this dream will come true, because God's promise never fails. If this video touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Someone who is about to give up, someone who has lost hope. You could be the instrument God uses to rekindle faith in someone's heart. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now. Turn on notifications. Because every week there's new content to strengthen your spiritual journey, to remind you that you're not alone, and that God has incredible plans in store for you. I want to remind you of one last thing. The power of faith is not in what you see, but in what you believe. Spiritual strength does not come from what you have, but from the one who sustains you. And as long as you breathe, God continues to write miracles in your story. So lift your head. Wipe away your tears, take a deep breath, and dream again, because a God who raised Christ from the dead can indeed resurrect any dream that has died within you. Isaiah 40:31 says, But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This is you, taking flight, renewed, ready to see God transform lives, starting with yours. May the peace of the Lord be with you. Until the next video.